Okay, for this exercise, I'm going to post a image of what the final one is going to look like, or it could start to look like here in the exercise 6 texture. But what I want to make sure that you do is that you get set up before you start. So make sure you set up your folder structure like this. So you'll have a folder called exercises, and in here you already have one called exercise 4 gestalt. Here you'll have one called exercise 6 texture, and inside there you'll have a folder called images. And then make sure you read through these instructions here and make sure that you have a good idea about what you're going to do before you start, and then you should be able to just go through it step by step. So again, before you start, make sure that you install Lightroom on your phone and on your computer using Creative Cloud. So here under the Creative Cloud icon, you can install Lightroom. So these are the apps that I've installed. If you don't have it installed, you should be able to find it here under Photo and Lightroom. So again, pretty powerful app, and it connects really nicely to the mobile phone. So I'm going to just hide this, and I'm going to hide this, and I'm going to switch right to right to the mobile Lightroom experience. So here on my phone, when you install Lightroom, it'll show up like this, be a blue app icon with that's LR, and go ahead and launch it. And if you've never used Lightroom before, what you see may look a little bit different than this. But what I want to do is I just want to show you what it's like to go from mobile to the desktop. So in order to take a photo, just click on the blue camera icon. And you have to make sure that you set up your Lightroom mobile so that you're using the same account as the account on your desktop. So here, and again, this is free. It comes with your enrollment in this course. This is so again, I was experimenting a bit with paper and with tools to see which one looked best, and this is one of the rubbings that I did for this texture exercise. This is a typewriter case, old Remington typewriter case. For a while we had a Greek one that we mistakenly returned. What I would just want to do is, there's some beautiful textures in here on this old typewriter, but I want to focus here on this part of the typewriter, which is the keys, right? And this texture here that we have. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a picture. So again, when you take pictures with Lightroom, make sure that you're using the professional setting. And if you're shooting out of your front camera on your phone, make sure that you have it set to DNG, which is Adobe's RAW format. So go ahead. So you can switch back and forth just by clicking on this toggle. Make sure it's set to DNG, and then go ahead and take a photo. So what happens here is I'm going to go here to the photo, close the camera, go to the library, and here you can see, if I go to all photos, here is this photo that I just took. And in the top right of the app screen, you can see that I'm going to make this a little bit larger so it's easier to see. Sorry, I should have done that before. So this cloud icon is thinking. So if I click on this cloud icon, it'll tell me that it's uploading the original. So when you go out and take your photos, come back to your wherever you're working on your computer, and just do something else while this uploads, because it could take a little while. It didn't take me a long time to upload all these photos. It's taken a little bit longer for this one today. I'm not sure why. But I want to show you a couple things while it's doing this. And we're not actually going to make any edits to this photo because I just wanted to upload. But if I open one of these other ones, you can see here that, well, this photo in particular looks a little bit gray, like almost underexposed. So you can actually edit some of these things right in right on the mobile app. And again, if we look at this tag on this photo here, it says DNG. So this is raw format. Any edits that I make to the photo are not actually applied to the photo. What all that Adobe does is it adds a little tag to it. So if I make, these controls that you see at the bottom, so if I click on any of these photos, I go right into edit mode. So any of these controls along the bottom don't actually edit the original photo. They only add a little text file to it that says, okay, this operator, the Andrew guy, he wanted me to change something in this photo, right? And it just adds a tag to it. So it doesn't actually, again, it doesn't affect the original photo. It's a totally non-destructive editing. So if I go back here, and the easiest, the quickest thing you can do to your photos to improve them, because you can see this photo doesn't have a full range of lights to darks. It doesn't go all the way to dark, and it's just because of what's in the photo and the light at the time. But if I click on auto, you can see that right away there's this immediate improvement to the photo. So I'm gonna undo that and go back. I'm not gonna apply any settings now, but it's really easy to do that with your photos, is just to go in and make some quick edits. And I'm going to show you again how to do that on the desktop. Lightroom is a very powerful app. I recommend that you get to know it a little bit better. There's lots of tutorials on the desktop that'll show you how to do things. And again, some really quick things you can do to improve the quality of the photos that you take. I'm just going to pause this while this finishes uploading. Okay, so once you have your photo shot and you've taken a photo of your texture rubbings as well, what you're going to do is you're going to open up Lightroom. And again, if you don't have Lightroom installed on your desktop, you can find it here under Photo. Once it's installed, you can launch any of these apps from here. You can see I have Photoshop, Illustrator, Acrobat. Down here is Lightroom. I'm going to go ahead and open that. And I just want to show you a couple of things you can do, and then you can export these photos into the folder that you created. So if I go here to all photos, you can see here's the photo that I took of the Remington typewriter. This beautiful texture, kind of close to being a pattern, but it's not. It's just this beautiful texture of the keys. I just want to show you a couple things that Lightroom can do. So quick things that Lightroom can do to improve the quality of your photos before, it doesn't take much time and it'll improve things. So take your time to go through the photos, choose the ones that you want. I'm just going to double click on this one. Oh no, I'm not double click on it. What I'm going to do is just select it. You can see here that what Lightroom does by default is it's going to save you a lot of time because it tags photos for you. So I actually haven't entered any tags on here. We used to have to do this. You guys are probably getting more used to this now, where the software that you use, when it goes to the cloud, it taps into the artificial intelligence, and it sort of analyzes your photo to see what it's made of. So, if I think about texture, I can type in, and I've never added any tags to any of these photos. If I type in the word wood, it will find all of the textures that anything that it thinks is made of wood. It may make some mistakes. If I type in metal, and I haven't entered any tags in here. It didn't find the typewriter, but it did recognize all these different things that I've shot that are made out of metal. If I type in, let's see, I don't know if it's going to do this, type typewriter. It did actually find it. So it found one of the photos and identified it as a typewriter photo. It may be processing the other one. So that's a pretty powerful tool. You don't no longer have to organize things. That said, it is actually helpful to keep things a little bit organized when you're picking and choosing which photos you're going to export and use. So what I want you to do is I want you to create an album, and you're going to call that album 22.3F. No, actually, don't create an album. Create a folder. So I'm going to delete this album. I want you to create a folder. Create a folder. I always get this mixed up. So you're going to call it 22.3F. Create. And inside of here, you're going to create an album. And you know what? Which one goes in the other? Not so important. But what is important that you keep things organized. So this one's going to be exercise 6, texture. And you're going to make sure this is selected inside folder 22.3F. I'm going to go ahead and create this. Create the album. Okay, so here we have this one. So now, I'm not sure why that showed up, but here, under this here, you now have this folder called exercise 6 texture. So go to all photos and you can start picking and choosing which photos you want to include on this exercise and which ones you don't. What I recommend that you do though is that if you did go and put a tag in some of the photos, so here you see I have this tag exercise 6, include that one too. So if you have more than one photo of that texture and you want that extra credit for the extra work, make sure you include those. And I'm just holding my shift key down, and that allows me to select all the ones in a line. If I want to deselect anything, I just hold the command key down and then I'll deselect it. If I want to select photos that aren't in a row, I just hold the command key and that'll allow me to select multiple photos. I'm just going to go ahead and select a bunch. I'm not going to be super careful, but you be careful when you do it and choose the photos that you want in your exercise. And when you choose these, what you're going to do is you are going to add them to this. My keyboard is a little bit wonky, so I'm just going to select a bunch of them for this. Just wanted to show you how to choose multiple ones. That'll do for now. And now all you're going to do is you're just going to click and drag them into this folder here called texture. And what that'll do is it'll simplify what you have to work with here, so you don't have to look at it as many photos. I'm going to choose this last one here that we shot together, and I'm going to drag this up there onto texture. And so what you can do, so again, there's very simple things you can do in order to improve your images. And one thing you can do is if you go up here to the top left hand side and you click on this here, edit, you can just click on auto. And what auto does is it looks at the images and it says, I think that you don't have enough tonal range in it. And it's going to, change the exposure a little bit to add the tonal range that it thinks should be in there. I actually don't like this. I actually prefer the original setting more, so I can just deselect it. And this is one of the powerful things about Lightroom is it doesn't actually edit any of these raw images. All it does is adds a tag to it that says, Andrew said do this. It doesn't increase the file size a lot, just this very tiny amount of information that it adds to it. Another thing you can do is another quick way you can look at improving the quality of your images is you can click on these presets. And I'm going to use this just to show you what happens. So if I select any of these, you can see here, it really pumped up the contrast on this quite a bit. Please don't go for anything that's too stylized. What you're trying to do here is you're really just trying to improve the image so it looks closer to what you expected it to look like. So, maybe I would like this one here, this preset. You can see here it's very transparent what Lightroom has done. So if I go ahead and select any of these, all that it's doing is it's actually applying all of these sliders here. So it's actually taking this preset photo enhancement or improvement preset, and it's showing you what this artist that created this did. So they actually went and took the time to apply all these effects to it. It's a lot for somebody like me. I'm a relatively amateur photographer. I mean, I've taken a lot of photos, but I really have worked with professional photographers. I haven't done a lot of professional photography myself, a little bit, but most of the work that I've done is working with professional photographers. This is like having a professional photographer right in this app here. It's somebody that's taken the time to say, if you want this effect here, these are all the changes that you're going to make to your image. So pretty powerful set of presets. And again, it doesn't take much time to do that. And it's totally non-destructive. So if I go ahead and at the very bottom here, there's this thing called versions. So go ahead and click on that. And what you can see here is that here's the version that we're looking at now. And there's the original. Here is the one that we've applied. And here's the original. If you like this one, just click on create version and say increased contrast, whatever you want to call it. Give it something descriptive. Try and describe what happened in the photo. And here you have two versions, and it's not two files. So it's not taking up a lot of room on your hard drive or in the cloud. It's just added a tag to it. So decide which one you like. I prefer this one. Close it. And then all you're going to do is you're going to take all the images that you have here. Once you've gone through and you've, made small improvements to them, you're going to take all of these and you're going to go File, Export. And this opens up a new pane here. And it's going to export all 15 photos. You're going to export it as a JPEG. You can export it as full size. I don't want you to use a high quality. It's going to be a small thumbnail image. You can go down to 60%, and that'll save up quite a bit of room on your hard drive. It's actually going to save these exported files to your hard drive. You're going to call it using our naming convention. So I know who you are. So all you're going to do is say when, what, and where. And what it will do is you want to start at number 1, and you're going to go ahead and say save or export. And here's where you're going to place them in your images folder that you created. And just go ahead and click OK. Lightroom might take a few minutes to do that. Go here and look at this images folder. Lightroom is going through and doing this work here of creating all these images here. So it's texture 1, texture 2, texture 3, and these are all JPEGs. And they're, if you find this is too big, just go back and save over them with a lower quality. This could save using up too room on your hard drive. Just make sure that when you place it in the thumbnail grid, that the quality isn't so low that it's gone fuzzy and pixelated. So that's all you're going to do in Lightroom for now. We're going to come back to this program later and do more work with it in future exercises. But for now, that's enough. So you're going to go ahead and jump into using the file from Illustrator. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to download this file called Thumbnail Grid if you don't already have it on your computer. And what you're going to do is you're going to save it into your exercise folder. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do these final steps here. So you're going to download the thumbnail grid .ai. You're going to place your photos that you took. So the photos of your rubbings, using graphite or charcoal. You can try pencil crayon too. And again, experiment a little bit with the paper. So you're going to photograph those, save them into your into the right files. So under here, images, and then you're going to save a copy as a PDF and place it on your Miro board. So I'm going to take you through that step by step, and I'm marking all of these in YouTube so that you can just jump forward to the part where you need my help. So let's take a look at the Illustrator file. So, and quickly before I jump in there, let's take a look at what the files look like. So here under UFE, here I have my folder called GD101. And again, I have my folders here. So Project 1, Postcard, Project 2, Form Storming, Journal, Visual Analysis. Really important to keep your digital files well organized. And I have this folder called Exercises. And here I have Exercise 6 Texture. And here I have this folder called Images. And I've exported some other ones as a test. But these images in here, it's important that you use the folder structure so that Illustrator doesn't get confused. So when you move files around, so if you try and organize your files after you've done the work, Illustrator will have a hard time finding them. And it's going to take extra time for you to go and try and find those files. So make sure you have this set up before to avoid that kind of grief. So I'm going to go ahead and open the file called thumbnail grid. And you can see when I open this is that this is the same file that I gave you before, and it has a background layer that doesn't print. And the reason why it doesn't print is because this is set as a template. So that just kind of guides what you're doing. And we're going to use this later on in the course, these guide layers. They're really useful. But for this exercise, I actually want you to reverse that and turn it off. So before we do anything, you want to save this thumbnail grid. I'm going to go ahead and don't save over it. Go to File, Save As, and I'm going to go to this folder that I created called GD101, Exercises, Texture. And I'm going to save it here, but I'm going to call it using our name and save it using our naming convention. So it's called Andrew. So your name in there, 22.3F, Exercise 6, Texture, and GD101. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. Okay. Okay, so if your screen does not look like this, all you have to do is click on this icon at the top here, switch interface, and go to your GD101. If you're missing your artboards layer, just go to here to Windows, open up your artboards. So right now it's open. I just closed it. I'm going to open up the artboards. It'll show up there. If it shows up here, all you have to do is click on the tab and drag it down here until, drag it right to the bottom until that blue line appears, and that'll snap the palette into the side pane. Keeping this organized is super important because Illustrator has a lot of palettes and tabs, and if you don't keep it organized, it's going to be really hard to find your work. And so what you're going to do is you're going to save this. So just go to New Workspace in GD101 and save it. And just make sure that every time that we add a palette that you update that one by going, calling it a new. So Illustrator doesn't let you update it. You have to call it New Workspace, and you're just going to save it the same every time as GD101. So what we're going to do is, like I said, so we're going to take a minute to set this file up properly so that we get rid of this guide layer here. We don't need it for this exercise. So if you go to your layers palette, you can see you can turn layers on and off by clicking on the eyeball. When you've converted this to a template layer, you don't get the eyeball, you get this little rectangle on the side. So if you double click on the word, it allows you to rename it. what we're going to do is we're going to click beside the word, the name, so by the word I mean the name of the layer. Just double click beside the name of the layer and deselect template. And here you can see that it's now no longer in italics. I want you to do that again, but this time I want you to rename it. And this is the layer where I want you to place your images. You place all your images in this layer, and then you're going to use this layer here. So you're going to use these shapes as your masks. So you're going to mask each image. The other thing you can do, so let's turn these other two off, and you can see that what I did is I placed this file that I created in the first class, or our second class, which was your thumbnail grid. I just scanned it and placed it in here. What I'm gonna do is just delete it. You don't need it. And so turn this thumbnail grid back on, make sure this is locked, and that this images layer is highlighted. So whichever layer is highlighted, that's going to be where Illustrator thinks you're working, and that's where it's going to place the images. So here I'm going to go File, Save, and we're going to start placing images right away. So go here to File, Place, and it's going to place again. This is the highlighted layer, Images. I'm going to go under Images, and this is where I've stored them temporarily. But just grab one of these and go ahead and place it. So when you click on place, what Illustrator gives you is it changes the thumbnail. It changes the cursor. So here you can see the cursor is changed from this selection tool cursor to a cursor that has little paper icons beside it. And if you had selected more than one image, it would say 1 of 2, 1 of 3, 1 of 4, and it'll place them one by one. I just did 1, and we're going to try doing 2 later. But it gives you a little thumbnail of it. Wherever you click, that's going to be where Illustrator will place the top left corner of the image. So go ahead and click, and you can see it places it. You can see here that this image is too large. So yes, you can crop it differently, but I want you to start by cropping it to the width of the thumbnail grid. So you can find the width of the thumbnail grid by unlocking the thumbnail grid layer, take your direct selection tool, and here you can see you're going to use this direct selection tool a lot. So take a minute to look at this hotkey here, which is V. So if you have any tool selected, you can switch to the direct selection tool just by clicking on the hotkey V. And you can do the same with the direct selection tool, direct selection tool. It's very fast. So worthwhile trying to learn a few of those. So here, if you click on that rectangle, it's a square. Square is a type of rectangle. And you go to the properties palette, you can see that it's context sensitive. So depending on what you've selected, it'll change what's in this properties palette. Here I've selected this rectangle, it tells me the size. And I'm working with picas just because it's a nice format. I'm not requiring you to work in picas in this course, but it is a really nice format to work with. And again, you can, if your rulers are showing here, if they're not showing, just deselect everything and you can turn on the rulers here. If I select this, right click on the ruler, I can switch to inches. And you can see here that that is 1.25 inches, which is 7p6. So it's 7 picas and 6 points. So if you kind of remember 7p6 or 1.25, whichever one you want to do, just click on this image. And if you find you're selecting these things while you're doing that, just lock it. Just lock the thumbnail grid so you can just work on the images layer. And again, you can tell which layer something is on. If you find you can't select something, it's probably on a locked layer. So just unlock the other layers, click on it, and here it will tell you which layer it is on. So I can change layers by just dragging that little highlighted icon back and forth between the layers. If you find you can't select this, just unlock all your layers and select it. And you can see here which layer it is on. Want it to be on your images layer, and go to your properties palette. And here you can see the first thing that you'll see under transform is where you're going to transform it from. So you're setting the reference point. And all we're going to do is change the width and the height. But what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that this link icon is selected. And that will maintain, again, when we're thinking about scale, we want to maintain the relationship between the width and the height. So we're going to scale this image, maintaining the relationship of the width and the height so that it's scaled accurately. And I'm going to just type in 7p6, and you can see that at the same time, Illustrator resized the height to keep them equal. I'm just going to, and I'm pinching on my trackpad in order to zoom in and out. If you don't have a trackpad, you can use your mouse, or you can use this magnifying glass here. If you get lost, just go to your artboards palette and double click on it to find that again. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to layers. I'm going to make sure this thumbnail grid is now unlocked. And from a place where there's nothing else on the artboard, I'm just going to click and drag across to select both that shape and the image. At that point, I'm going to right click and go down on the context menu to make clipping mask. And you can see that cropped the image. I can actually go in here. So if I use my direct selection tool, I can select just the image or just the shape. And let's just take a quick look what that looks like here. Here you can see on the layers palette, here's my clipping mask group, and here's my rectangle, and here's my image. I want you to add the stroke back to so an outline to the cropped image. So what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that you've selected the rectangle. Going to go here to the swatch beside the word stroke and just choose black. You can choose this other color here, which is a very special color called registration, but I would rather that you just choose black. So go here to this painter's palette and click on black, and that'll bring a stroke back to your mask. This clipping mask now has a stroke to it. So you cropped your first image. Let's do 2 more, and then I'm going to just let you do your own. So I'm going to go ahead and fill up this page full of textures. And again, make sure that you check the requirements on the page for the number of photos that you need to take and the number of rubbings. I want to make sure that you take the time to go outside, take some photos inside, and just enjoy your day. So here I'm going to go back to my images layer. I'm going to lock this thumbnail grid, and this time I'm going to place 2. So I'm going to go here to place, and I'm going to take the second one. Again, what I did here is I placed a tag in there. This is shot on the same pole, and that way I know that you went outside and that you actually shot these photos as opposed to just finding them. I mean, if you're welcome to just find these photos on Unsplash, that's fine. But I'm going to give you a higher grade if you take the time to go outside and do some visual research. So this time I selected 2. So I selected 1, 2. In order to select more than one, just hold the Shift key down and you can select another one. And I'm going to select 3 and go ahead and place. So here you can see this time what Illustrator did is it's giving me the 1 of 3, just like I told you it would do. So I'm going to place the first one there. I'm going to place the second one there. And you can see how maybe 1 by 1 makes the most sense, but it'll just keep placing them 1 by 1 into the grid. Again, do one at a time. If you find it too confusing, you don't have to do multiple ones. But once you get the hang of it, you'll find it's a lot faster to do multiple images at once. So I'm going to select this first one. I can do the same thing. I'm just going to change the size to 7p6. And I'm hitting the tab key, and that moves me from one field to another. And that also applies the transformation. You can do the same with this one here. I'm going to type in 7p6 and hit the tab key to move to the next field. Again with this last one, 7p6 and tab, and now I have 3 on here. You can see if you do want the extra credit and you did shoot a separate image with your little piece of paper in there, a little tag, just make sure it's showing in the grid. And that way I can acknowledge that extra work that you did to put into practice some of these ideas that we talked about in class. So now I'm going to go ahead and unlock this thumbnail grid layer. I'm selecting from the top here, right above, top left, outside of the image. If I click on this image and try and drag, it's not going to give me a marquee, it's going to move the image. Command Z to undo that. Click above the image and drag across. And that will select both of them. Then right click, make clipping mask. Another way to select more than one thing is by, again, the same as in the Finder, I can select the image, hold the Shift key down, and click on the shape. And I can tell I've selected both because they're highlighted here. One thing that Illustrator will do is it'll highlight the image based on the color of the layer. So if I double click on layers, you can see here that the layer has a color. If you find that it's hard to see something with that color, you can actually change the color of that layer and then it might show it better. I'm going to stay with blue. If you select more than one thing, it does show you the color here and the crosshairs, but the outline of the shape is going to be the color of the top layer. It's just one of those things that Illustrator does. Right click, make clipping mask, and same with this here. Select this one, right click, make clipping mask. Once you've made this, so I'm going to just go ahead and select all of these. So I'm going to use my direct selection tool and I'm going to click on this one. You know what, if you select both, it's okay. It'll still allow you to change the color of the outline. But I'm holding my Shift key down to select more than one of these shapes. So holding the Shift key down, again, I can see what I'm doing here. If I expand these layers, I can see exactly what Illustrator has selected. So here I have these 3 rectangle shapes selected. And again, I'm just going to go to the swatch beside the word stroke and I'm going to give it color of black. Make sure you save your work. Last thing that I want you to do here is I want you to give it a name. So it's your name. So add a label to the top of the page. It's 22.3F. And again, I do that just to keep things organized. Exercise 6, texture. GD 101. Okay, so just a quick thing. So some of you were using fancy typefaces. So for these exercises, and the same with Miro, I only want you to use a serif, a plain serif, or a plain sans serif. If you don't know what a serif or a sans serif is, when you've selected this type object, go here to, again on the properties palette. Because I've selected a type object, I get this option to change the character. This first field here is the font family. So again, that's a typeface, it's not a font. Fonts are individual, one weight. It used to be one size, but the typeface is, this here is a sans serif. So one way to find out what are serifs and sans serifs are to click on this icon here, which is the filter. And here you see you can choose just serifs and it'll change what's listed there. If I click on this one, it'll give me the sans serifs. You're welcome to use a slab serif if you want. Do not use any of these in any of the exercises in my course. You'll have lots of opportunity to go crazy with exploring typefaces. For now, I just want you to use a sans or a serif or a slab serif. And here you can see the differences. Just these little feet. That is the serif. This is sans, which in French means without, sans serif. This is with a serif and with a slab serif. Any of those three is okay. Just make sure that you're not choosing any of these quirky ones. So anything, that just looks kind of normal. Nothing that's all uppercase, just any of these kind of normal looking typefaces. All right, so once you've chosen your typeface, what I use is I always use PT Sans. It's a kind of new typeface that, and they have a serif too, that was created by IBM. It's free, available online, and that allows me to use the same typeface on Miro that I use in Illustrator. And just place it here, somewhere in the center. Make sure that you take the what and make it italic. Go ahead and save it. The last thing, you're going to fill this all this grid. I'm not going to do this now. The last thing you're going to do is you are going to save it as an optimized PDF. This is very important because you can't submit anything as an Illustrator file in this class unless I ask you to, and you can't upload it to Miro either. So you're not going to do save as. You're going to do, this is the last step you're going to do once everything's done. You're going to do save a copy. And that preserves your original working file. And you're going to save it in the same place. All you're going to do is go to the end and you're going to remove this word copy. And you can do that later, but I find it easier to do it now. Go ahead and call it a PDF and click save. And here it's very important because if you don't optimize this file, it's going to be very slow work in Miro. It's going to use up a lot of room on your hard drive. So what you're going to do is you're going to deselect preserve Illustrator editing capabilities. That will reduce the file size. You're going to go to compression, and you are going to go average down sampling to 150 ppi JPEG. Average down sampling 150 ppi JPEG. Average down sampling 300, and zip is okay. And you are going to name this because you're going to use it every time. And you're going to do the same thing with this. You're going to do GD 101 optimized PDF. So that means every time from now on, when you create this PDF, you just have to select this here from the drop-down list. GD 101 optimized PDF. And you're going to go ahead and click Save PDF. Last step, place it on Miro. You're not going to submit this file now. You're just going to place it in Miro. It's going to be graded as part of your postcard project. So I'm going to be looking to see that you're still continuing to do visual research. So the title frame, it'll be part of your postcard project. So it'll be part of the step 2, which is interpret. So you can be continuing to do visual research. In Miro, now you can just go here and you can grab this file here that you just saved and just drag the PDF into Miro. So again, you have this file here with your thumbnails. You can do the same thing you do with everything you place in Miro. Keep it organized. So make sure that you organize it with this Project 1 diversity and connection, and it's going to be with, you'll have a new title frame for interpret. Click on so with this PDF selected, click on the ellipses and go create frame. I'm going to call it exercise 6. So you can just use, I just shortened it EX6 texture. Okay, and because this is a white page, you can just make this transparent. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to go in here and start selecting colors that detract from the content. So the content of these frames is just an exercise. And again, like your typeface, what you want is, you don't want to detract from it. If you want to share this with me, if you need to share it with me, if you have some questions, something didn't work, you want some feedback, just right click on here and copy the link. And that way, when you send me this link, I can go directly to the page that you have a question with. And if you've allowed me to add comments, I can comment right there. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing what you guys find.